In this video, I want to discuss how the Bible, sometimes today in our politically correct age, sometimes people tend to look at the Old Testament and they call it the Hebrew Bible, and they look at the New Testament and that's like that's the Christian part. And there's some truth to that, but there is kind of this notion that the Christians kind of have their scriptures and the Jews kind of have their scripture, and no, I don't think that's right. What I want to point out to you is that the Bible, as we have it, all 66 books, is one unitive, coherent whole, and that if you look at the Old Testament in and of itself, it's not complete. That's the point I want to get. The Old Testament, in its own, in its own words, if you, even whether you're Jewish or a Christian or an atheist or agnostic, if you read the Old Testament, honestly, in itself, in its own words, it begs some other further resolution. There's something incomplete without it. And thus, something else, some other, something, whether, let's say you're not a Christian, you're like, well, something like the New Testament has to come along and come to an answer for it, because there are too many features inside to say that the meta-narrative, that the grand story is left hanging and incomplete if you're only left with the 39 books of the Old Testament, okay? So that's the point I want to make. And just to illustrate that, I just want to take you to, we'll just take you to 3 Bible passages just to help you illustrate it. So, first one is Isaiah chapter 53. All of these, by the way, in one sense or another, point to some future where someone is going to come and heal our deep problems. And of course, in the history, of the interpreting the Bible, they said this figure is going to be the Messiah. And so it made perfect sense that that the Jews of ancient Israel were looking for this, because this is the word that God gave them. And so here's one of them, Isaiah chapter 53, okay? Who has believed what he has heard from us? Verse 1. And to whom has the arm of the Lord, of Yahweh, been revealed? For he grew up before him like a young plant, and like a root out of dry ground. He had no form or majesty that we should look at him, and no beauty that we should desire him. I think you know what we're talking about here. We're talking about, I don't want you to immediately think about Jesus. I want you to think that there's some figure, some person that's really, really important to the future for when this was written in the book of Isaiah. And this is how he's described. Okay, he had no form or majesty that we should look at him, and no beauty that we should desire him. He was despised and rejected by men, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. And as one from whom men hide their faces, he was despised, and we esteemed him not. Surely he has borne our griefs and carried our sorrows, yet we esteemed him stricken, smitten by God, and afflicted. Smitten means smited, that is by struck, and hurt by God and afflicted. But he was pierced for our transgressions, he was crushed for our iniquities. Upon him was the chastisement that brought us peace, and with his wounds we are healed. All we like sheep have gone astray. We have turned everyone to his own way, and the Lord Yahweh has laid on him the iniquity of us all. And so this figure, scholars have said, before you can say, well, obviously if you're a Christian, you can that sure sounds like Jesus, okay? But scholars, if say, okay, in its time, they name this figure the suffering servant. There'll be someone who is a servant, who is an important servant, that the iniquity of us all is laid upon him, and that there's a chastisement and wounds that will be upon this suffering servant. It's really important to the healing of God's people. So here's one. So where is the servant? We're looking for the servant, and that's one. And in the future, the Old Testament has now, in the book of Isaiah, looked and called after this figure. There's one example. Let me offer you a second one. This is from Daniel chapter 7, another one of the prophets. And this figure has a name that scholars, and of course not just scholars, but throughout history in Israel, they called this figure, because out of the book of Daniel they call him the Son of Man. So this is Daniel chapter 7 verse 9. Okay, so this is the prophecy of Daniel saying, "As I looked, thrones were placed, and the Ancient of Days took his seat. His clothing was white as snow, and the hair of his head like pure wool. His throne was fiery flames, its wheels were burning fire. A stream of fire issued and came out from before him. 1,000,000 served him, and 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The court sat in judgment, and the books were opened. Okay, let me just, not keep you in suspense. The Ancient of Days, this is God. And when we're talking about 1,000 thousands and 10,000 times 10,000, it's like saying the multitudes, everyone, all that is before him came down and stood before him, and then the books would be opened, and then there'd be judgment. Okay, this is the Ancient of Days. That's God, okay? Verse 11. I looked then because of the sound of the great words that the horn was, there's a horn, and then, it's okay, I won't get into all that, right? And as I looked, the beast was killed, and its body destroyed and given over to be burned with fire. As for the rest of the beasts, their dominion was taken away, but their lives were prolonged for a season and a time. So there's a season and a time, and when beasts are going to come around and they're going to devour and oppress and make and all throughout the earth. And these beasts generally have been interpreted as these are different empires that have come, and this is the way history is unfurling. All right, empires that are oppressive, and they're like beasts that they for a time they have dominion, and then they oppress, and then they devour their beasts. Okay, but then the prophecy goes on, verse 13. I saw in the night visions, and behold, with the clouds of heaven there came one like a son of man. There it is. And he came to the Ancient of Days and was presented before him. He came before God and was presented before him. And to him was given dominion and glory and a kingdom, that all peoples, nations, and languages should serve him. All peoples, nations, languages. It's utterly all-encompassing. His dominion is an everlasting dominion, which shall not pass away, and his kingdom one that shall not be destroyed. So these other kingdoms, they're like beasts, and they have dominion for a time, and they devour, and they're oppressive. But there'll be one who isn't quite God, and he'll be presented, he's not God, he's presented before the Ancient of Days, and then he will come forward, and he will have a dominion and a kingdom with a glory before all peoples and nations and languages. They will serve him, and this will last forever and forever. This is the Son of Man. So this is more like this great grand picture that so many people are hoping for. Can there be a leader? So again, let's just bracket this and not immediately think this is Jesus. That there could be a leader in the future who can heal all the divisions of the world and not fill it with such oppression and be like beasts. Okay? Let's give it one more. Again, this figure is not there in the first 39 books. This person hasn't come. We look at history. Where is this person? The Old Testament is begging for this person, is looking for this resolution. Okay? And let me just offer you one more. This is Isaiah chapter 11. And here, the figure's name of Son of Man is not given. But listen, you can see that it's very, very similar. Right? And so this isn't just in one place. So here's Isaiah. Isaiah, there's a suffering servant. In Daniel, there's a Son of Man. But then another place in Isaiah, this figure is not like a suffering servant. It's something different. Listen. There shall come forth a shoot from the stump of Jesse. So there's this guy named Jesse. And someone's going to come out of Jesse, right? And a branch from his roots shall bear fruit. And by the way, at this point, Jesse, out of the stump of Jesse, Jesse, is in the lineage of David. David came out of Jesse, okay? So this is a reference to that this is the son of David. And the son of David, immediately we know that we're talking about the Messiah here, okay? And a branch from his roots shall bear fruit, and the Spirit of Yahweh shall rest upon him, the Spirit of wisdom and understanding, the Spirit of counsel and might, the Spirit of knowledge and the fear of Yahweh. This is Isaiah chapter 11, verse 3. And his delight shall be in the fear of Yahweh, of the Lord. He shall not judge by what his eyes see, or decide disputes by what his ears hear. In other words, kind of like the way human beings do it, the typical human beings do it. But with righteousness he shall judge the poor, and decide with equity for the meek of the earth. And he shall strike the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips he shall kill the wicked. Righteousness shall be the belt of his waist, and faithfulness the belt of his loins. And then now here's this incredibly beautiful point that's so famous. Verse 6, the wolf shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the young goat, and the calf and the lion and the fattened calf together, and a little child shall lead them. The cow and the bear shall graze, their young shall lie down together, and the lion shall eat straw like the ox. The nursing child shall play over the hole of the cobra, and the weaned child shall put his hand on the adder's den. The adder, it's a poisonous snake. They shall not hurt or destroy in all my mountain, for the earth shall be full of the knowledge of Yahweh, as the waters cover the sea. That's the promise. Isaiah chapter 11, verses 1 through 9. So here we have a suffering servant. We have a son of man whose kingdom and a dominion shall, unite all the nations and will last forever. And then we have this figure who is out of the stump of Jesse, the son of David, who will kill the wicked and bring justice. And then those people who are like lions, I don't think it's important. It's like there's going to be a lion, he's going to lie down. It's like, no, those who are more like lions will be gentle as lying down with sheep. That children, they can go to those who seem dangerous like cobras or adders, and they'll be utterly safe. And this is the promise of God through this very special figure. So this is kind of thing is in the Bible, and it's not just about there's going to be a special person who's going to make the world a certain way. It says it's not just our nation or our politics. It's all of history and all of creation is going to be changed and healed, and all the nations and all the people are going to be affected in this way. And he's going to suffer, and he's going to reign, and he will bring about justice, including killing the wicked. And he will now root out, instead of like history being like, the world being filled with beasts, the lions will lie down with the lamb. This is what it's like. The wolf shall dwell with the lamb. So if you have any questions about why is it that Christians have such confidence that the Bible really is a coherent whole, is because when you read through the Old Testament, the New Testament truly is the resolving answer to the Old Testament. And of course, it is in the proclamation that this Messiah, the Son of Man, that the suffering servant has come, and that news is called the gospel, and his name is, of course, it is Jesus.